Hey everybody, my name is Slava. I'm a guy from Russia who had to leave it due to obvious reasons when the war started, and I represent those Russian people who do not support this war in any way, and there are many of them. So why did I start recording this video? I just read an article, well, didn't actually read the whole article, I just took a quick review on article in Der Spiegel, and so the name of an article is Putin is the people, and it's about why do so many Russians support this war. So it got me thinking about all this situation, and I decided to give my humble opinion about all this. So first of all, do I agree with this statement, is Putin the people? Well, I do not agree. However, it turned out that there are much more people who support this war than I thought there would be. It's a very sad fact, but if we dig a little deeper, then we get to realize that it's not about Russian people being that nation that wants bloodshed and doesn't care about children's and other innocent people's lives in a neighboring country. It's a little deeper than that. And first of all, Vladimir Putin's regime, like any other totalitarian regime, is based on fear. So I left Russia after the war started, like in a week or week and a half, and even during these 10 days, which I still had to stay in Russia while the war has already started, I felt the pressure coming each day. New laws, open medias closing down, some people are thrown to prison, and some were still protesting. And I heard, like, when I was scrolling through Twitter during these days, I saw a lot of people from Ukraine and European and other Western countries were saying, like, go start a riot, throw Putin away. And it seemed a little bit not realistic, at least, to say the least, because this regime was building their power for many years, and they didn't know how to start a war, but they know for sure how to control their own population. And it was not realistic at all to change anything, but you could only make it worse. You would definitely make it worse for yourself. You would at least pay some crazy fines. You have a good chance to face jail time up to 15 years. So was it a smart thing to do? I don't think so. When the war started, I felt like I have only one option: to leave this country, and probably for good, at least until something changes, which I don't believe is gonna happen soon, unfortunately. But if you cannot leave for various reasons, if you have to stay, then what can you do? I thought about it, like, it felt that Iron Curtain is coming down, and I was thinking, like, what the fuck am I gonna do if I have to stay in this fucked up mess? Because at that time I already realized that this war won't be 3-day war like maybe Putin believed it could look like. I knew that this one will be devastating, long, and very messy war, which is happening right now. So I thought, like, if for some reason I had to stay, how would I live my everyday life? What would I do? Because obviously I wouldn't be able to start supporting this war because I'm a normal human being and I cannot support this shit. But if you try to retaliate and say something against, at least say, or try to do something against, then you have a good chance to end up in prison and just die, or end up at this war fighting for the aggressor, which is probably the worst thing that can happen, even worse than fighting the war for your own country for a reason, protecting your country. It's a better way to die. So yeah, I thought, what can I do if I have to stay? And I came to a realization that probably I would just try to do everything as normal as I can, because there is no other good option except to leave, as I already told you. And as I look on my friends now who stayed in Russia, who don't support war, they do the same. The ones who, well, maybe don't support war but support the regime, they also do the same. They just live in mesmerized, trying to do everything they did before in the same nature, but something is telling me that it's not really working, even though we can look on some Instagram profiles and people are still living their lives, eating in restaurants, hanging out on the river, everything like we did when I was there. But something is telling me that it's not working very well, but people still don't know what else they can do. Because, as I already told you, if you're in Russia right now, there is not much that you can do to oppose this regime. Only some silent fight, which means nobody shall know that you're the one damaging, some sabotage tactics. That's the only thing that is left, and it's very dangerous, obviously. Yeah. So is actually Putin the people? I don't believe so. How many active pro-fascists have been left in Germany after Hitler's regime fell? Not too many, right? Even though 2 days ago they were marching the lines with all these Nazis. So I believe it's the same thing. The day this regime falls down, if it happens due to the war, and I believe this way or another, this regime is coming down because of this war, because they cannot win it. You cannot enslave the whole big population country just like that. They can only destroy it. That's the only thing they can, but they cannot completely destroy it because they cannot show it as a victory as well, and they will have a huge bounce back from NATO and everyone. At least I hope that they have balls to do it. NATO, I mean. So I would say that people who stayed in Russia, most of them, I believe that they don't support this war, but they just have to witness and be silent, which is quite difficult. It's not as difficult as living under this war, I understand, not even remotely. So when Ukrainians told that we should go out and, dethrone this regime by any measures, I understand it. But when Western people who never lived under a totalitarian regime tell this, it seems a little funny to me, because they just cannot understand what they're talking about. Now, the others, I have to admit, there are a lot of Russians supporting this war, and even though I wasn't really surprised in a bad way by any of my friends, pretty much, I don't think, like 99% of my friends, they do not support war. 100% of my family, they don't support war. Well, 100% of my family, if we are talking about my actual relatives. But, for example, my wife's parents, now she's coming from a small town, Syktyvkar, and it pictures the difference between big cities like St. Petersburg, where I used to live, and small towns work. So in small towns, the support is bigger because there is such a society that is built around unification in such towns, and people there, even if they don't admit it, they're just simply scared to have a different thinking that the mass, the majority of people, and thus the propaganda can hurt them more, can affect them more. And each day when you made this decision that you will support Putin's regime, and you will set yourself to believe what news are telling you, you ignore what happened in Bucha, saying it's all Western propaganda, fake materials. You ignore all the other horrific stuff that is going on in this war, and it's just every day it's getting harder to admit that you were wrong. It's just how psychology works, and you just try. The more it knocks on your door, the more you try to ignore it. Does it mean that they're bad people? I don't know, I'm not the one to judge them, but they just made these decisions, these agreements inside themselves, that they are here and they need to think like the mass thinks, and don't start digging too deep. They're all afraid to start digging too deep. They just they don't want to end up in the situation when everything they believed in falls down, and they're still stuck here, and they still cannot be outspoken, and they will be just in, let's say, inner immigration. So they'll be still walking the same streets, smiling to same people who support the regime, but inside them they will think that they're against it, but they will not be able to show it. So it's very hard to live like this. A lot of people live like this, the ones who understand everything and do not support this war. They live like this in Russia right now, and it's very difficult. I had to live like this only 10 days, and it was pressuring me a lot when I saw some random drunk guys outside toasting to the war, or I don't know what the fuck they were toasting to when this whole shit started. Screaming like, yeah, Russia is the best. I don't know, I felt like I wanna take a baseball bat and go fuck them up, but I realized that I'm gonna end up in a big trouble. Like, you cannot beat people. Anyway, you'll end up in trouble, but with this political underline, it would be even worse for me. Yeah. So, do actually Russian people support Putin? I firmly believe that most of them don't. Like, those numbers are just made up out of my head, but I believe that more than 50% of people do not support this regime, and out of the rest 50, I would say 30% support it because everybody around them supports this regime. They're conformists. They don't want to end up in trouble, and they don't want to think too much. They just want to live their lives, and they believe in what everybody else around them believes. That's just easier to live. I believe that most of people who support the regime right now in Russia are exactly that, conformists. And of course there is this 20% of aggressively minded, washed with propaganda Putinoids. Yeah, there are a lot of them, but I would never believe that there is a majority of them. No. At least from what I see from people who I know, almost 100% of people who I know, they end up in either of these two categories. They don't support the war, or they support it because everybody else supports it as they think, because this is what the public picture is right now in Russia, and there is no other, because for anything against war you face prison, as I already told you, and you probably already know. So yeah, and now talking about this, I think that we took a little bit of a bad narrative right now, talking about, for example, Latvia closing down visas to Russians. TOEFL exam is no longer can be passed by a Russian citizen. I understand the nature of all this new laws, but what result will it bring? Those 30%, as I already told you, of Russians who on words support this war, but inside they just try to stick around the majority of people. They don't want to stand out. They can start moving towards the actual supporting of this totalitarian regime, because when you hear such news that you're not welcome anywhere just because you're Russian. You start to think, well, I don't, but I put myself in their position. They start to think, so maybe Putin is right. Maybe America and Europe just hate us, and they try to kill us, and we need to support our leader who's trying to save us. This thought is running through heads of many Russians I know, who are now kind of confused and they don't know what to stand for. And I think that Europe right now should actually show them the values that it has, democratic values, and to show Russian people what they're missing out with all this crazy totalitarian regime that is only getting worse day by day. And these measures, they don't really follow these goals. That's my opinion. I understand that facing troubles of I understand that Russians right now are like Germans in during the World War II and after, and it is what it is. You're as a Russian, you're facing troubles when you get outside of Russia just because you're Russian. It's harder to get a bank account done or anything like that. All these visa problems, documents, problems with work, all that. I understand it. It is what it is. We are a fascist country right now, and that's how the world works. You have to feel some collective guilt, and probably we kind of deserve it. Because individually, as we look back, we won't be able to change anything, but collectively we should have, and we didn't. So I understand it, but the harsher measures are taken against just usual Russian citizens who are not affiliated with war in any way. Will only bring this 30% of, I would say, fake supporters to actual supporters, and I think nobody wants it. Nobody out of normal people. That's what Putin wants. Putin wants to all fake believers become actual believers and go to death for their Führer, and that's what we don't want. We want something to change and this war to stop, and it's not helping, but it's my opinion. So yeah, thank you for listening, if anybody's gonna listen to it. Slava Ukraini.